Well,
Viral news source.
PPP fraud list is real. Listen.
So there's a lot of rumors swirling around about this PPP warrant list and whether or not this is true. There is, in fact, a PPP warrant list. And this is a list of people.
Ooh. Is that the list? I guess, what does that say? Hold on.
Who they've investigated who committed PPP fraud that they're coming after. The thing about
Wow. I mean, I don't know if that's the actual list, but he's saying it is. So let's continue.
the list is that it's not public. You know, this is something that law enforcement do in fact have. Based off the sheer volume of people who committed fraud, it's going to take years to come after everyone, right? And what they've done, they've prioritized sort of the low-hanging fruit. And when I say low-hanging fruit, I mean the cut and dry cases, right? Where you create a fictitious business, you were on government assistance, and you got PPP, fake businesses, things like that. Now that Trump is in office, or about to be in office, it's going to get a lot worse. And the thing about the PPP fraud is that it's a bipartisan effort. You know you're in trouble when both the Democrats and Republicans come together to prosecute you for fraud. It's going to get a lot worse is because now that President Donald Trump is about to come into the White House, as a lot of you guys know, his policies will lead to government budget deficits. And the reason why is because
I do believe that Trump is going to clean up a lot of different issues that this country's having financially, but I do also believe one of them will be people stealing from the government through PPP. I think he hates thieves. He doesn't like that. And so I think, this guy right here, I think he knows what he's talking about. Let's listen.
because there's going to be less tax revenue that's going to be collected, right? Or at least that's what they're projecting. So we all know that it's very unlikely that the government is going to start spending less. So where's this shortfall going to come from? They're going to be coming after people who fraudulently took money from the American taxpayers, people who committed PPP fraud. There's still billions and billions of dollars outstanding that people obtain fraudulently. So they're going to really start to ramp up enforcement of that. And you also got to remember, because, a lot of people say, oh, they're letting people slide with it. Everyone's not going to get caught. Now, if you remember in 2022, Joe Biden signed the Bank Fraud Harmonization Act of 2022.
Now, I remember this. Let's go.
As a result of this, they extended the statute of limitations to 10 years. So basically, if you committed bank fraud,
Look at these pretty faces on here. Looks like some supermodels. Okay.
feds now have up to 10 years to investigate and prosecute and come after you. So think about that. When did the PPP loans come out? In 2020. So for you to be in the clear, let's assume you got a PPP loan back in 2020. They have basically until 2030 to build a case against you. It's only 2024, about to be 2025. So they still got a good 5 years to come after you if you committed that fraud. And people don't realize how easy it is for the feds to actually figure out if you committed PPP fraud. I actually used to work as a data scientist on behalf of the federal government. The companies I worked for had government contracts with different agencies, statistical agencies. Basically, they would come to us to solve these problems where they're saying, like, look,
this guy sounds like a very educated young man, and I think he knows what he's talking about. You be the judge. All I can do is put the information in front of you. Hopefully, you're not one of the people that abuse this PPP loan with fraud. Like, hopefully that's not you, but if you did, then you may want to get as much information as you can about the abuse and the consequences and deal with it. So continue to listen to this guy.
Here are the data sets. This is what we're trying to figure out. Now, just putting on my data science hat, if they come and say, look, how do we figure out who committed PPP fraud? I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. So when you submit an application to get a PPP loan, all of that information is captured somewhere. So from your IP address, so that's going to be your location, your MAC address, the type of device that you actually use, and even what you put on the application, all the numbers you put, the EIN you put, all of that is sitting somewhere in a data warehouse. When the time comes for them to look deeper into the matter, all the data that they need is going to be there. Now, here's one real quick way to determine if someone committed PPP fraud. And there's a lot of different, rules that you can apply to figure this out, but one very easy way. So when you run payroll, every quarter, you're supposed to submit a 940 and a 941. So,
listen up. This is a key to figure out. They're going to lock you behind some bars where they need keys to get you out.
those forms would basically say how many employees you had, the total amount of wages that you paid out to employees. All they got to do is cross-check your 940s and your 941s to see what information was actually on those forms. Let's say you did $1 million in payroll, but you never submitted a 940, 941. Well, that's pretty cut and dry, right? So you're going to have to explain that away, why you didn't file those forms with the IRS. So that's a real easy cross-check. The second thing is to pull 4506T, pull your tax transcripts. Your business never filed taxes, but you allegedly paid all these wages, but that's not reflected on your tax return. So that's another really easy cross-check. The 940 and the 941, these are documents that have to be filed with the IRS, which basically is saying how much wages the employer paid out to employees. If you didn't have a real business, you're not going to know those types of things. So there's a lot of ways where people are going to get screwed. And going back to this Bank Fraud Harmonization Act that Joe Biden signed into place, it's going to give prosecutors, investigators more time to look after you. And I'll give you even an example. A subscriber to the channel just received 12 years in federal prison. And they recently got sentenced back in like August, July of 2024, right? We're in November. There's countless of examples online of people getting arrested for PPP fraud that they committed back in 2020 and it's 2024. So don't think that you're in the clear. And now that Trump is in office, it's going to get a lot worse because, like I said, Trump's economic policies are going to create even bigger budget deficits because he's going to give out tax breaks and tax cuts to well-to-do people, businesses, and, upper class American citizens. So where's the rest of this tax money going to come from, right? If he's giving out tax breaks, they're going to have to get it from somewhere. And more than likely, they're not cutting spending. So they're going to look for different ways of collecting tax revenue. And so one of the ways that they're going to do it is enforcing the laws under which, people violated and committed fraud through PPP. They're going to try to get some of that money back. And, people saying, oh, well, my loan got forgiven. That doesn't matter. A lot of people who are getting locked up right now, they had their loans forgiven. But guess what? Once they investigate you and figure out, okay, this was a fraudulent loan to begin with, it doesn't matter if it was forgiven. They're coming after you. So definitely tighten up because you're going to see a lot more cases of people getting arrested for PPP loans now that Donald Trump is in office.
I've even reported someone for PPP loan fraud. They deserved it too.
Office. Now, the best thing that you can do, let's say if you did commit PPP fraud and they haven't come after you yet, is just pay it back. Just pay it all back because they're not going to come after people who fraudulently obtained the loans but then paid it back, right? Because technically it's not creating a loss, right? Even though it is, because that's another business who could have got that money, but they're not going to be too concerned if the money was recouped. But if they don't get that money back, they're definitely coming after you. And for anyone who may have defaulted on a PPP loan or even an EIDL loan, they're definitely going to be looking closer. So if that paperwork doesn't line up, it might spell trouble for you. And as I mentioned, this PPP fraud enforcement is a bipartisan issue. So this is something that Democrats and Republicans have come together on. And now that President Trump is in office, it's definitely going to ramp up because they're going to try to get some of that money back because there's going to be less tax collection from the government.
Great viral news source.